and welcome to today's episode of Seed Speaks. My name is Ashley Robinson, and I'm the editor of the Alberta Seed Guide. Today, I'll be acting as your host for this episode. On today's episode of Seed Speaks, we're taking a closer look at how the weather reporting industry works with and uses social media to share what is happening in the world of weather. And we have a few guests here with us to chat about this. So I'd like to say thank you to Anthony Atlas, Braden Morriso, and Chantel McCartan for joining us today. And to those watching, please don't hesitate to ask any questions you may have for our guests in the chat box. And let's start with getting to know our panelists. So Anthony, first off, can you please tell me about yourself and your work at Salient?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Anthony Atlas. I lead the business development efforts here at Salient. We do longer range weather forecasting, so sort of a high-tech approach using a bunch of new machine learning models and things like that we've developed to forecast further out. So we're working with a lot of food and agriculture companies, energy companies, things like that, who need forecasting kind of weeks, months, and quarters into the future. So that's us. I've been in this space probably about 4 or 5 years now. In agriculture, probably about 10.
Thanks, Anthony. And Braden, can you tell me about your work as a storm chaser in your company, Prairie Storm Chasers?
For sure. So I've been storm chasing for about 13 years, using social media during that time frame to report on severe weather live from the field and help people understand what's happening on the ground level, as well as I do some weather consulting in the oil field for different outfits, including Osprey Integrity, that does drone ops for inspection purposes. And that's for long range forecasts for moving assets for those bigger jobs.
Thanks so much for being here. And finally, Chantel, can you tell me about yourself and your work at Environment and Climate Change Canada?
Sure. So I'm a physical science specialist with the Meteorological Service of Canada at Environment and Climate Change Canada. And a big part of the work I do, along with my team, is find ways to communicate weather and climate information to the public. It often involves using different aspects of social media. So we're basically trying to take information that's very complicated, convoluted and very long, and just trying to simplify it, shorten it, and put it in everyday terms.
Perfect. Thank you guys all so much for being here. Let's get started. So first off, my first question is pretty general. When did you first start using social media in your work? And maybe I'll let you answer this first there, Anthony.
Sure. It's probably about 2017, as far as when I really got serious using it in agriculture. I think that was probably the beginning.
Thank you. And Braden, yourself, you said that you've been using it sounds like for quite a while.
I started using it back in 2011 when we realized that Twitter was such a big aspect of the storm community, and that's for reporting weather again. And I think Chantel can attest to, Environment Canada utilizes those platforms by using different hashtags for each province, for the prairie provinces up here in Canada, and same for the National Weather Service down in the States, using different hashtags to see what's happening real time on the ground with these storms.
That's really cool, and it really shows how social media really interconnects people when it comes to weather reporting. And Chantel, what about yourself?
For us, in terms of an organization, I think we were a little slower to adapt social media. At first, we were more kind of on the scanning through social media as opposed to really posting. But I think for us, it started in 2012, very slowly. Like Braden said, we started using some of the hashtags on Twitter. And eventually we moved into a social media app called WeatherCan about 4 or 5 years ago. So as time evolved, we're using social media more and more often in our daily work.
Definitely. And maybe I'll start this question with you first there, Chantel. What type of weather information do you guys share on social media through your accounts?
Well, for us, especially with the weather app and Twitter and Facebook, we will share our weather forecast. We share weather alerts, as well as we have this product called MetNote, which is a little bit of a tap on the shoulder to say, there's something that's not quite warning criteria ready, but it's coming the next couple days. We'll share storm tracks of upcoming or past storms, storm summaries, kind of lighter hearted content as well, such as weather anecdotes, anniversaries, looks back through time. And we'll also try and do educational and awareness content on some of our platforms.
Quite a diversity there. Braden, what about yourself?
Similar to what Chantel said there, we share a lot of educational stuff, trying to kind of bridge that gap just to help people learn more about weather, because I feel like people are a lot of the time afraid of something that they don't understand, and weather is something that you shouldn't be afraid of. We share a lot of real-time storm posts, and that's giving a timestamp, location, and what we're seeing, and just providing that ground truth to what's happening underneath these storms.
Thanks. And Anthony, what do you guys use it for there? Of course, you guys are more on the agriculture world. So how do you guys use social media there?
Yeah, we certainly we share information about longer range forecasts, things like that. Certainly write-ups. We have quite a few blogs. We'll sort of dive deep into something, maybe compare what we're seeing in a few different areas, and I think often just to share upcoming events, places we're going to be, a chance to meet other people in the community. Get everybody together. So it's a good sort of online water cooler, if you will, and try to connect with the right folks.
That's a great lead in, I think, to my next question, which is really, of course, you guys have said how you share information on it, but how do you use social media when it comes to your weather reporting? Are you guys sitting there looking through posts to see what people have posted if you know that there's supposed to be some weather event happening in an area? Or is it mainly you guys trying to get information out to your audiences by sharing? So maybe I'll start with you there, Chantel.
Yeah, well, I think you pointed out a good point. For us, we use it in two different ways. One of the really important ways for us is to communicate our information. If you'll take, for example, we're the authoritative source on communicating weather warnings. And if you look back 20, 30 years ago, if you had a tornado coming, if you weren't sitting at home, you're not getting that warning. But now with social media, with your phone in your hand, we push that information and it's getting in people's hands in a much faster way than it used to in the public. But on the flip side, we also use social media to be able to validate our information or to validate what's going on. I'll go back again 20, 30 years ago when if you had a tornado and you saw the tornado, it'd be very hard for you to take a picture, to send it in. People wouldn't even know where to contact us. And now we just have to scroll through Twitter or X or any other form of social media, and we can see that validation of the warnings that we've sent out. So we use it in, I would say, two very different ways, but two very useful ways for us.
Thanks. And Anthony, what about you guys?
Yeah, I think in ag, certainly there's ag Twitter is a really active community. I mean, kind of makes sense when you think about it. You've got people in all these rural areas and looking for ways to connect with others, and so I'm often on there just seeing what people are saying, what they're experiencing on the ground, how they're dealing with it, how they're responding. It can really help, I think, appreciate sometimes the nuance and how weather actually impacts the day-to-day operations of people that you're ultimately trying to help. So both for on the agriculture side, even commodities, seeing what's going on, what people are thinking about, what they're seeing in the market. So those are, I think, some of the ways that we kind of pay attention to what's happening across a wide range of geographies.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a good way to really monitor things. I know as a journalist, I use it myself in a lot of the same ways. And I've had to do in the past, I think back when I was a daily news reporter, I had to do like the spot news when there was a big weather event. And the first thing we did was always to go to Twitter what was called Twitter at the time, now X, and you check the social media hashtags for that area to see who had the video that you had to get for your news website, and then interview them and everything. So Braden, how do you use it?
Definitely use it mostly for pushing information, and again, just getting that ground truth of these storms and posting what we're seeing real time. And similar to what Anthony and Chantel said, just pushing that information to the public. We also utilize it a lot in the ag side of things. For we have a lot of farmers that follow us for when is a good time to spray and stuff like that. So we definitely use it for pushing most of our information out.
Thank you. And I'll ask you this question first. So we really talked about, I think you guys are all using social media really when it comes to your job. That's why you're on here. But does social media really help you do your job? Like, do you think your job would be easier without it, or would it be harder? Or do you some days just wish you didn't have to scroll through social media all day at work? Braden, I'll let you start first.
Definitely makes it a lot easier, especially, again, as Chantel said there, people posting things that otherwise we would go unnoticed. So years back, we would have a tornado in a field in rural Saskatchewan, and by not having social media, we've really brought a light to severe weather across North America and seeing storms that otherwise would have gone unnoticed.
Definitely. Chantel, what about yourself?
Yeah, I would say it definitely simplifies things for us. It makes it so much easier to disseminate information, even across the country, whereas opposed to in the past, you're maybe a little bit more focused on your region. But we have such a wider range of attainable to the public by using social media. Same thing with our emergency management organization. It just makes it so much easier for us to be in the public's eye as well. So I would say it definitely helps to do our job.
Definitely. And Anthony, what about yourself?
Yeah, I think it's pretty helpful. I mean, even if we're going to be meeting or speaking with a particular person, the ability to see what they're saying, what they've been talking about, what they're thinking about, whether that's on LinkedIn or X or something like that, helps me get a better pulse on what is sort of on their mind. And I think also sometimes spot opportunities, looking at how people are talking about the weather and what they did or didn't know and the way it's impacting what they're doing. And if I think there's an opportunity for our forecast to be better utilized to help address that need, that might set off a light bulb in my head, something I take back to the team. So I do think we find a lot of benefit from it.
Interesting. Great points there, Anthony, about how you use it to try and respond and see what your audience needs for information. I know myself working in news, we do that a lot ourselves too. It's like, what are people chatting about? What are they sharing? And Chantel, you made an interesting point there that I'd just like to ask a bit more about. You said about emergency preparedness. Do you feel like social media is helping to make things safer when we come to some of this wild weather? I know you've mentioned quite a few times that 20, 30 years ago, it'd be hard to find out if there's a tornado happening in your area. So do you think it has helped to make things easier to be able to alert people?
Definitely. I think people are very curious. So when we start to, say something's coming down the road, people are just generally curious. People like to know, people like to have that information, and that entail people will ask more questions as opposed to in the past. It may have been a little bit more hidden. People didn't really quite know what was coming in the future. So I think there's a lot of call them new terms that aren't really new terms that now the public is aware of simply because of social media and of interest drawn from social media.
Thank you, Chantel. And Braden, beforehand, we were actually talking about your last few days of work, and you're located in Alberta, which has saw a snowstorm. So how can you tell me a bit about that and what role social media has played?
Absolutely. So just again, getting that information out there was a really key point of social media there. Seeing the road conditions, for example, we had that was really slick road conditions, and a lot of vehicles got stranded out there, but a lot more stayed home because they saw what was happening on social media. It allowed them to kind of get a better idea of what the conditions were like out there. So keeping them from getting into the same situation as everybody else was in the last couple of days.
Thank you. And I think that plays into my next question, which I see a lot of complaints from people saying, like, when there is weather happening, they're like, oh, it's overblowing because it's all over social media, or people saying that we just have so much more wilder weather happening right now. And when it comes to that, what role does social media play in this seemingly never-ending stream of wild weather that we are witnessing these days? Anthony, maybe I'll let you answer first.
Yeah, I mean, weather volatility is increasing. That's kind of one of I think the core things that everybody's seeing. Sort of regardless of what the causes are, you're just seeing the range of, possible weather that you'd experience increasing. So it is, I think, increasing the awareness of those challenges and sort of the variety of conditions that somebody might need to prepare for in order to, stay ahead of the weather. I'm sure, yeah, you don't really talk about the weather that much when it's going well. You tend to probably, people complain about the weather more, so you probably see a lot more of that, and that gets circulated. But at the same time, in ag, there'll be people saying, well, over here the crop's not as dry. We've been getting better conditions. Like, what are you seeing in your area? And people will chime in and report on it. So I do think there's a little bit of consensus building that is sometimes happening as well, where people are trying to get a get a little bit of a pulse on what's actually happening more broadly across a key region like the Corn Belt.
That's really interesting. I don't always focus on that, but I do that myself. Is if we see the storm or something, we'll post, be like, "Hey, how much rain did you get?" Comment away. So yeah, that's really a good point to make. Is that people don't just use it to share when something wild's happening. They also use it to kind of just check the pulse on what is going on if they are seeing drier conditions in their own area where they're farming or something. Maybe I'll let you answer this. Do you have anything to add to this, Braden? There.
Nope, not in particular.
And Chantel, what about yourself?
I think Anthony kind of hit it right on the nail, right on the head, saying that we are seeing, weather events are becoming more frequent and more intense. Social media definitely helps us see a little further down the road. We can see things, other side of the country and other countries as well. I think another thing too that's pretty interesting is with science. Now we're linking more events together. So if we're talking about forest fires and floods and landslides that are occurring a couple months down the road, well, those events are tied. So if we're talking about the floods, we'll bring back the forest fires. So maybe those are coming more and more in the news as well because of that interdependency of events as well.
That's really interesting. So it's really helping this interconnected social media sharing era that we're in. It really helps to be able to even connect long-term events that are happening and stuff.
Absolutely.
And of course, not everything on social media is real, as we all have known. And I think we've all grown up getting those lessons on how to tell what's real and what's not. But there have been some changes recently. So how do you guys wade through social media to make sure that any content you're sharing or using from other posts is accurate? And how is that impacted by the latest rise of AI images? Braden, maybe I'll let you start with this one.
For sure. So it's definitely impacted how we share storms, because there's a lot of AI images out there of storms that aren't real. So just discerning whether those visuals are real or not, and then just making sure that you're not sharing false information is really important. And that is a big issue in definitely the weather side of things.
Are there ways that you can tell that to verify, that you can just give as hints to maybe somebody that's listening right now that could be scrolling through Twitter looking at something that's happening storm-wise in their area?
For sure. Just kind of basic storm fundamentals and storm shape. Like, for example, tornadoes. There's a specific design to these supercell thunderstorms. And there's a lot of images out there that show tornadoes in odd spots in those said storms. So just kind of discerning that kind of aspect of the storm to kind of see if it's in the right spot.
That's good to know. Chantel and Anthony, do you guys have anything to add about how you guys make sure that what you're sharing is accurate?
I think just like Brandon said, is checking your sources. For us, as a government agency, we have to make sure that what we share, if we do share something, has a valid source. So we will often go to our trusted partners, and as well as seeing if an event is happening and you're getting 6, 7, 10, 20 videos that are from different angles, then it's a little easier to judge that, this is in fact a real event. This is real footage. But always, like Braden said, always try and be very careful with that. And obviously we are humans. Sometimes we make mistakes. We'll try our best to correct it as quickly as possible if it happens.
Oh, go ahead, Ashley.
No, sorry, continue on, Anthony.
I was just going to say, I think, sources are key. The only, we'll also we have a deep set of, of scientists on the team. So especially if we're talking about new, either new studies, papers, sort of insights that somebody has, we'll often just ask our team, like, what do you think about this? Or rely on their sort of wealth of experience that they have conducting the work that they've done to get an opinion from them or get a perspective, or does this seem real or not? So that's also a way we'll try to leverage our in-house the experience of our team and where they're really experts in order to try to make sure that anything we're talking about online is informed, and we've sort of at least run it by a few people that should have an opinion that we can trust.
Yeah, all good information there. I know myself. One other thing that I always see pop up is when people share pictures from storms from years past. Sometimes it's an easy one to discern because it'll be like somebody will reshare a Facebook post and you just have to look at the date that it was posted and be like, actually, that was from 2 years ago. But sometimes it's people will actually like take images and post them themselves. Have you guys ever ran into trouble with that before?
Definitely. Yeah. Lots of times. There's a picture of a shark in the street. And a lot of the time when there's a hurricane, they say that that's a photo that recirculates very often.
Definitely no Sharknadoes. But yeah, I know myself with working in the news industry, we always have to, it's just quick little easy checks like that. And sometimes just not getting super excited when you see something really cool. You have to double check. So, of course, we've been talking about social media and we've been talking about all the ways that you guys use it a lot. But what advice do you guys have for anyone watching on how to approach social media where it comes to sharing and consuming weather information? Maybe I'll start with you, Chantel.
Well, I think for one, we've talked about it. It's use your trusted source. Use either government sources or people that you trust to share or for them to share the information. And be mindful, just like we're doing here, to try and when we're sharing, looking at the source, making sure it's a valid source. Do that yourself. Try not to spread misinformation. I think it's all on us to try our best to not do that. And obviously with AI, things are definitely getting more tricky. So just taking a minute and seeing what's out there, making sure it's valid.
Definitely. Anthony and Braden, do you guys have anything to add?
Yeah, I think key for me is just, I've been finding, I'll just look for accounts where people are sort of thought leaders in their space, whether that's meteorologists, people at universities, people at leading companies or government organizations. And so I find that that's a good starting point for just, building up a little bit of a particular audience that I want to follow along with, see what they're saying. And then from there, as I see people commenting, engaging with each other, interacting, things like that, that might lead me down the path to find more. And that's how I'll sort of just start to build up, a group of people that I think are providing useful information that's interesting, and hopefully try to get, an informed perspective on what they're seeing.
Thank you. And Braden, anything yourself that you'd like to add?
Definitely, again, just the reliable source. And there's a vast community of storm chasers out there that are always sharing information from the ground. So that's a really cool option too, is just to see these citizen reporters out covering these storms in the field. But again, just discerning what's real and not real is really important.
Yeah, definitely. In the age of misinformation, that is always key, not just when we're talking about weather, but today that is what we were talking about. So that's why we're harping on to make sure that you guys are getting your information from the right and reliable sources. Well, thank you guys all for being here today. I really learned a lot. I'm excited to rewatch this and just dive a bit more deeper into these topics. So thank you guys all so much for doing this conversation with us today. And thank you to those who were watching for tuning in. And for those watching, if you missed any part of today's live stream, don't worry. We'll have it available on demand on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And if you have any questions about the subject or ideas for future topics we should tackle, feel free to send a message to any of Seed World's social media accounts, or you can reach out to myself directly. And next week, make sure to tune in as my colleague Mark Zinkowitz has some guests on to chat about wildfires and the impact of non-native plant species. Thanks for watching today and have a great rest of your day.